And a good Monday morning to you. Welcome to the EST Hangout. Matt Iwanyk with you here alongside the YouTube Trev for a little bit. Wil Fraser, and then Jeff Krushell is going to join us right away because apparently it's bad on the roads right now.
If he doesn't, I'm leaving. That's the only reason I showed up. So.
I knew you would come when I throw Jeff Krushell.
Yeah, you baited the hook.
Yes, I knew that was the one that was like, if I need something with Jeff.
I was a disinterested largemouth bass, but then you said it and reeled me in.
That's awesome.
Oh, I'm going to enjoy just listening to the two of you talk to each other, and I'm just going to sit here and not say anything.
We're both going to sit. I just kind of want to hear that too, yeah.
How bad is it on the roads?
Yeah, well,
because it was fine coming in.
No, but it's the first snowfall, right? And it's going to snow all day, so... I don't know if you've lived in this city long, but this is every year, right? Like this... Yesterday afternoon was me and my sons putting snow tires on the cars. That's what our day was. And it's because I can look at a long-range forecast. It's my magic. It's my superpower. My superpower is being able to pull up the weather app on my phone and looking 2 to 3 days in advance and making plans based upon that.
I'm a little surprised you did it that late. Like, I'm surprised. You seem like a guy that would put on the winter tires like a week or two ahead of time.
But there's a temperature range, right? Like anything above 7 degrees Celsius, and your winter tires are actually not good on the roads. And so it's been too warm. It's just been too warm, especially the road temp. You'll damage your winter tires.
This guy knows.
So it's bad.
Had to wait right until the end. So yeah.
Do you do winter tires?
I'm going to, because I did go through a stop sign, not going to lie. I was trying to stop, but there was no stopping, so it was pretty bad. I do not envy anyone on 111th. It was like backed up like crazy, so it took me like 30 minutes to get here. It usually takes me 10.
It's the irrational aggression that's going to be so entertaining this afternoon. Of like, there's 90% of the population that will drive with due caution.
Yeah.
And then the other 10% that are going to be upset that 90% are driving with due caution.
Come on.
See,
that's true.
I don't mind Edmonton winters. I hate driving in Edmonton winters for the two portions of the drivers.
I don't think it's it's just driving.
Well, it's
man.
winter driving. Like
interacting with society is always a tense
but like
thing.
Winter, like otherwise, I'd love to live in like Arizona or something where I don't have to deal with snow.
No,
and
you
driving.
just deal with people with guns in their vehicles.
Yeah, just don't cut people off, and you're good to go. Or you'll learn your lesson really quick. You get the people that drive way too fast, because they think they're invincible. Like Dusty now thinks he's invincible in a truck, which scares the hell out of me.
We were talking about that right before the show. We're like clock it right now. 30 days from now, he's kind of come in and be like, guys, ever notice how much gas pickup trucks use?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I didn't even think about that.
They burn a lot of fuel.
I have to fill up every week. And it's a lot of money.
Yeah. It's like a 100-liter tank. Do you know how much money a 100-liter tank is? Yeah.
But there's those and then there's the people that drive a little too slow.
Yeah,
and that's a very dangerous thing too. Where it's like,
that's even
like people look, speed limit 60, people are driving 50 because that's the road condition. But then you got that one person who's driving like 30.
Yeah,
and you come up and it's just it's like I got to deal with those two extremes of idiots, and it's just the worst.
Once upon in my life, before I had kids, I golfed regularly.
Did you?
I don't anymore because all it takes is one perfect day for you to realize you're a bad father if you're out there. Because you're like, well, we got about 6 of these and I should probably spend it with my kids. And so that's
Take
usually
them golfing.
Yeah, no, that's what cured me in my golf. But when I did, there was always that one guy who would approach his drive and get set, and right before he hit the ball, he would back away. And he'd go through his motions again. And you just respected the guy that knew himself enough, or lady who knew themselves enough, that they could reset. And I've always thought that about like certain drivers out there. Like when they hit the roads and they're doing 20 kilometers an hour, like you should just stay in. Like if you get out to your car, like just take a moment and like survey the area, think about yourself, go, am I up for this today? And if not, just
stay home.
Use your phone. Say, you know what? I think I'm going to make some calls. Yeah.
If you're scared to drive, it's going to be one of the worst things you could do.
Yeah.
Take the bus.
Yeah.
Catch a cab. Yeah. Uber's very convenient nowadays.
Absolutely.
There's so many other ways to get to where you need to go. And I know it's going to cost some more money, and it's,
What is your thumb broken?
But in the end,
what, did the outlaw hitchhiking?
It to a degree is safer for everyone around. Just everyone around.
Yeah.
Now, what do
That's
people
true.
have to do when they're driving in these conditions? We need a good classic. Turn your lights on.
Well, if your like, I'll say this right now: if your lights aren't on, you should be run off the road. You should.
Yeah.
It's that simple. There should be mob justice involved.
Is this how you spend your winters? You drive around looking for someone's lights.
Yeah, I go.
And then you try driving them off the road.
I go full Mad Max out there. I put the bush bumper on front, and I just start pitting people into the ditches, left, right, and center. Yeah.
It's all because the lights aren't on.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have your lights on?
You know what you did.
And then when the cops pull you over, you just tell them, and they go, "Thank you for your service,
Exactly.
Will."
Cops just
Thank you for your service.
They just
Another
give the
great
old
day.
tip.
Another great day out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, see, I never have to usually deal with I never had to deal with like the rush hour drive to work in the snow.
Right.
Because I always came to work later.
Yeah.
So I skipped it. And then right now, I'm coming in for 4 a.m, so I'm missing it.
Yeah.
I feel like the drive to work at 4 a.m. when it's snowing is very nice. Because there's no one out there
believe it.
still.
No, it's sketchy though,
Is
right?
it?
Because no one's cleared it either.
Yeah.
Right. So there.
But if you slide through something,
back
you're not
in
going
the
through.
day, there was some mornings where it was like, I'm not quite sure where the road and the ditch are.
Oh.
Like, there's no tracks.
Jeff, just walk on in.
Oh,
Good
there
day,
he
buddy.
is. There's the
Just
big man.
walk on in.
Just a ray of sunshine. How's it going, buddy?
Excellent, guys.
That's good.
So
That's
tough
awesome.
road conditions.
That's
That's
what we're just talking about.
Yeah.
Holy
Well,
smokes.
Crusher just drove the garden tractor in.
Yeah.
He decided to take it easy and
1936 Oliver.
yeah.
I tell you,
Our camera's a little glitchy right now.
he said, I've
no.
shocked this system.
I'm gonna
Fraser,
we'll
how
fix
you
that in a little
doing?
bit.
I'm good, buddy. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. I've been seeing you.
It's good.
Yeah, when was the last time you guys then hung out? Right?
Oh,
It's been a while.
it's been a long time.
Long time.
Yeah, he's on opposite side of the county. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Are you guys live in like the same area? Like, same,
Well, we're both county of Parkland people,
Yeah.
but he's southeast and I'm northwest.
and it's just too far to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
The north and south
Nice.
don't mix.
yeah. If I was better at Shakespeare, I'd say the whatever and the Capulets, but I can't remember what the other family was. But
Don't get me started on Shakespeare. I can't stand Shakespeare. I got in trouble at the 1260 for Shakespeare because I said there's no need for it in schools. There's none. Let's just skip it. Let's
First
get to
of all,
other things.
I
And
I
there's-
appreciate the hot take.
Yeah.
It's the weakest of hot takes I've ever
It
heard.
wasn't a hot take. This isn't a hot take. This is
Yeah.
just reality.
It's just the
don't like
weakest
them.
of hot takes, and I appreciate that you got in trouble for the weakest of hot
Well,
takes.
like
there
not
is.
with bosses or anything. Let me
Yeah.
clarify.
No,
It's
that's
just
what
with
I mean.
listeners.
Like
Yes.
there was listeners who felt
Oh.
compelled enough to be upset.
There
at
was a
that hot
couple
take.
that were really upset. Like they were absolutely, completely annoyed.
Wow.
It's-
Don't even get me started on Robert Frost and Keats, man.
I don't need ye old English. Let me just learn the lessons in normal English. That's all I want.
Yeah,
I don't need to waste my time with you old English.
I see. I think it's the Italian in you. That's what it is.
That could be.
Yeah.
What does that have to do with it?
I don't know. I think you've probably always had an inferiority complex to the English language, period.
Just give me the English that we speak nowadays.
Yeah.
That's
That's
it.
fair.
I don't need to read it in a different language.
We don't speak English anymore, pal. Have you heard what people speak?
Well, it's better than the old Shakespeare.
More hot takes. I'm loving it.
Don't need any of Shakespeare.
Shots fired. Old Billy Shakespeare is upset.
You should come back for hot takes. Because we're trying to think about hot takes again and what to do with that.
Oh, man.
Oh, it has to happen.
We got the Met. We just have to. Actually, we haven't done that, and we haven't done a draft
Listen.
yet. We still haven't gotten one of those.
Listen, if
done.
you're mic dropping on your Shakespeare comments, I don't stand a chance.
Oh, I'm retired. I'm retired from hot takes. I got screwed over in the Tournament of
you
Champions
did,
against
did you?
Titch.
Yeah.
Well, one of the judges, I think it was Nairman from CTV. She was the judge.
Yeah.
And she gives it to Titch, and then like minutes after, she's like, actually, it really should have been Matt.
Yeah.
And like afterwards, she kept saying it was me, and it's like, well, I had better takes, and I should have took down the champ.
Sorry,
So
pal.
you're out
So I quit.
as a protest. You quit as a statement.
I'm not
I
doing
quit.
this. I'm not doing this again.
As a protest.
Damn right, Grush.
I'm
The
pretty
fix
sure
is
it's
on.
pretty
I'm
sure it's
fixed.
It's called pouting.
I'm done. I got robbed.
This is not political.
I got robbed, so I'm not doing it again. I'm out.
Yeah.
So then I did the judging for a little bit.
Yeah.
And now I'm done with that too.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm not part of it anymore. I'll just watch. I'll tell everyone how good or bad their takes were, but I'm not doing anything.
I see.
In an official capacity,
You'll still judge, but you won't put skin in the game.
Well, look, Will, you've known me long enough. I'm always judging.
Exactly.
I'm always judging people.
Yeah.
But officially, I will not be judging.
I
It's
see.
not going to be officially on the record. Just to myself.
Then did it ever officially happen?
You're going to be a text line judge.
I'm not even texted in.
No?
No, people don't get it. That it's reserved for me now.
Gotcha.
Audience of one.
Yeah.
The only audience that can handle it.
Maybe this is something that AI could actually take over,
What's that?
like
Hot
hot
takes?
takes judge.
Do
Listen,
I still have chat?
yeah, see, I do.
Well, I'm just wondering if my account, if how quickly it is.
I don't
to
think
open it
I've
up.
written a birthday card inscription in the last 3 years that was
Smart.
really my own.
Oh, I do still have mine.
I think it's all been ChatGPT.
Let's see
It's
how.
impressive.
Give
and
me
way
the
more like heartfelt
hottest
than anything I can come up with.
sports take you have. Okay, I'm asking for the hottest sports take it has. Let's see what it gives me.
Yeah.
Go. One of the hottest sports take is that LeBron James will ultimately be considered the greatest basketball player of all time, surpassing even Michael Jordan's legacy, thanks to his longevity, versatility, and impact on and off the court.
Well, it's nice to know that Dustin Nielsen is ChatGPT.
Are you sure you didn't just text? Yeah, did you just text Dusty?
Okay, as for another, just quickly. Another hot take is soccer, in brackets football, will become the most popular sport in the U.S. within the next couple of decades, overtaking traditional American sports like American football and baseball due to its global appeal and the increasing diversity of the U.S. population.
No, that's a
There you
hot
go.
take.
Those are the hot takes,
Wow.
courtesy of
Second one,
ChatGPT.
I have a
They
hard
need
time with that
it
second
needs
one.
to shorten them.
Yeah.
Just bullet points. You just do bullet points.
You're giving a hot take to the hot take?
No, I'm giving advice.
You're giving advice.
You
need to do better.
It's like an air check. Will.
Yeah.
I'm air checking them.
Well, this is on the internet, so I'm sure it's being incorporated right now. The algorithm listens.
Well, it's doing well. It did.
Yeah.
Those aren't bad. Dusty's going to be very thrilled by that, and
He'll be
agrees.
so pumped
Yeah.
yeah.
to think that our AI overlords will one day
Let's do
agree with
one
him.
more. One more. Let's make it 3.
Yeah,
Not that
get
bad.
the third one in.
Let's get it. Here's a spicy take. It says
Spicy. Okay.
In the realm of baseball.
Oh,
Some argue that the use of advanced stats and analytics is harming the sport's traditional aspects and slowing down the pace of play, potentially driving away casual fans and diluting the essence of the game.
That's a spicy take.
yeah.
That's going to be a
It
new
is.
category, spicy take.
Spicy take? Do you agree?
Well, there is
Is
some truth in
analytics
there.
harming the sport's traditional aspects and driving casual fans away?
Here's what I think happened with analytics. Of course, everybody knows the Moneyball story, and it was kind of cool because JP Ricciardi came to us at the Blue Jays from, of course, Oakland.
Yep.
He was a Billy Bean guy, and so he actually instituted the real first analytical program in the Toronto Blue Jays organization. And Keith Law was the analyst. And if you read Keith Law's stuff, really, really smart. Really smart. But here's what happened, I think. It redlined. Everybody went all in without really understanding it and what it's all about. And it redlined, and it was the numbers. And now I think if you look at how the game was played this year, it's kind of coming back to a happy medium. There are meaningful numbers, for sure. But it definitely has changed how the game is played without question. I mean, just look at the shift and how we're using pitchers. So there is, but it was Buck Showalter. 2 or 3 years ago, just before the season, he said, look, the numbers are important. And we have now all of the tools to get these numbers. He says, but we can't lose the art of the game. And that's where I think we're kind of getting into that now.
Yeah.
That's a fair answer.
I've always thought that it was a spurious, that's the word, spurious argument, in that like it'd be like a beauty pageant complaining that it's all about looks these days.
Yeah.
Like baseball has always been a stats-driven sport. Like from its inception, we've kept track of batting average and home runs and RBIs. It's just all of a sudden the analytics side of it came along and said, there's other numbers.
Yeah. Lots of them.
Right? Like they didn't say, hey guys, there's numbers that we can use to track. They said, the numbers that you're using, there's also these numbers as well. Like all they did was expand the scope of the numbers that were being used. Not that numbers weren't ever being used before. I always felt the best part of the Moneyball book was when they went into the scouts room before draft And the old school scouts saying things like, this kid looks like a baseball player.
Right.
As part of their critical analysis
Interesting.
of drafting a baseball player. And if analytics rid the sport of that kind of thinking, it's only been good. That's just a good thing. You should never be evaluating an athlete on the idea of he looks like a baseball player, right?
Well,
that's where stats should always be superior.
I know it's a movie and there's creative licenses taken in, but Moneyball, when they do the scouting meetings, there's a truth in what was being said in that, where it's, have you seen his girlfriend? Lack of confidence. And then stuff like that. And you're like,
interesting.
That's what
Well,
you're
but that was Michael Lewis. That scene was not made up. That is a quote, a bang on quote from a scout in the A's boardroom who would say things like,
crazy
lack of confidence because his girlfriend is ugly
to him.
This was not guys in a stand, kind of as happens in baseball, where a bunch of scouts get together and they kind of shoot ideas around. This was the official, we're setting up our draft list and we're setting up the order at which we're going to draft, and they're debating whether or not a guy should go higher or lower based upon the looks of his girlfriend. That right there was why analytics took over, is because all of a sudden you had GMs and owners hearing those same things in their rooms going, wait a minute, are we honestly moving guys up and down a board based upon how hot his girlfriend is? This is insane.
That's crazy.
No one else does this. And so that's probably where analytics really took off, right? And so it's interesting when guys go, the art of the game. Well, he's right. It's Buck Showalter, one of the greatest artists of managing a baseball game. And so he is not wrong that there is a sense of understanding the moment. And baseball, more than any other sport, has the moment because there is no clock.
Right.
I went through that this summer at Wrigley Field, where Cubs were down 5-2. It was the sixth inning. Joey Votto had already hit 2 out of the yard for the Reds. It was already a great start to the night, and the Cubs were rallying. They had runners on first and second, and a man up, and there was just an energy to the moment. I was there with my whole family was there, and I stood up and just started leather lunging it. And my mom, who was sitting next to me, she's like, "Why are you standing up?" And I looked at her and I said, "Because this is the moment."
Yeah, right.
Because this is the moment. And sure enough, I think it was a double into left. And it was and then 2 runs scored, and they rallied, and they just clobbered them from there. But baseball, probably more than any other sport, as much as analytics are part of it, there's also still that artistry, that understanding when does the moment come.
Yeah, look at last year's. There's been a couple great examples, right? And I mean, we could look at the shift in the 4-man outfield, and we could look at, of course, the changing in the use of the pitchers. Using a bullpen guy to start a game, then getting your starter coming in for 4 innings in the middle of the game. It's kind of a cool mix-up, and I have no problem with it all. I wish they didn't limit the shift. I really do. I wish the shift was still there, and we just create hitters that can hit away from the shift.
Right.
What are we doing here?
Yeah. What happened to Tony Gwynn, right?
Yeah. We're taking away speed bumps for television is what's happening. And I don't appreciate it, because I thought there was a huge opportunity for great hitters to actually be great hitters.
Yeah, but you got all the time in the world, Krushell.
No, that's true.
The rest of the world's like, I do not have 4.5 hours for a baseball game.
But that's one thing I do appreciate is how the game is sped up. But take a look at this, though. And this would be a great experiment for us to do. If we went back over, let's say, 2010 before and 2010 to now, and look at the number of stolen bases or, the number of hits up the middle. We know the shift eliminated. A ground ball was basically an automatic out with the shift, of course, because it's just statistically, it's just how the game is, unless you get hitters that hit the other way. But when we talk about analytics, and this I know for a fact, look at Kevin Cash last year with Snell when he pulled Snell, probably not a great baseball move. And we got to ask, was that a decision? Were those numbers there before that game even started? And this year with the Blue Jays, right? Pulling
Barrios.
Yeah, right. I don't think I don't think those moves would have been made before this huge analytical push where the guys upstairs are throwing down odds and numbers. Those pitchers might have been given a little more leeway. Maybe. I'm not sure. I'm just saying that there has been some changes, and these numbers are changing how the game's being played.
Is that reflected in the age of the managers?
That's another great question. I mean,
is that reflected in the age, like in that, do we now have general managers and presidents hiring younger guys?
Yeah.
Because they know that they can tell the younger guys exactly how they want them to manage the games, whereas the Showalters of the world,
but also
know how to tell management to take a hike.
Yeah.
That once the game begins, they're in charge. I wonder if that's part of it.
But the younger people are also, because Moneyball's from early 2000s.
Yeah.
We're 20 years now into
You're
that.
right. The younger
some of
guys
those
are
people
more
have grown in that
saturated in it.
environment, and they don't even have to go against management. They may just fully agree with management.
Yeah.
So let's look at Texas right now. Two of the greatest, we're talking baseball royalty managing those two teams. But if you look at Texas before with Chris Woodward stepping in, they invited me down for 4 days to do sort of analysis of their entire organization, which was great honor and
So
super
of the Texas Rangers is all because of Jeff Krushell.
No. This is no. But it was actually quite.
I'm going with that.
No, it was quite.
Crusher
cool.
gave him a 3-word response. It's too hot.
Build a covered air-conditioned stadium. And voila, there it is. $2.5 billion later, they got a new covered stadium. Everybody's comfortable. And away they go. With unbelievable turf, which is another question, or we could talk about today, the turf thing I've just been watching in the NFL. Right? And that's, I think if you remember way back in the day on TSN, guys, we did a show on turf versus grass, and we had all the world's top experts. And at that point in time, they're saying the new turf, the consensus was the new turf is really, more conducive to consistency of play. And the way the technology is going, a reduction in injuries. But now we look what's going on in the NFL. It's nuts. Ankles and knees on the turf. Conversation for another day. But the Texas Ranger guys actually worked with the turf companies to create the turf, this new turf that's as close as possible to the actual conditions without being turf. So I'm watching that with great interest too. But the Texas Rangers were it was cool to get in and just sort of be
a fly on the wall.
Fly on the wall. And I got to talk to everybody from their analytics guys to their minor league guys to the coaching staff to the performance team guys. Just really, really great. But then there was turmoil upstairs, right? The leadership, and it comes back to a conversation I think we had in this room a couple weeks ago, is that idea of consistent leadership. The GM was in trouble, so he got moved to president. And they hired a new GM, and then poof, they clean it out, and this is what they've got now. So, that old school guys, if we look what's going on, you have, and look at them go with the other night where they cleared the benches and then the managers are out there, these two baseball royalty guys. So I still think there's a huge room for the guys, or a lot of room for those veteran managers to steer the ship. And I think there's a lot for young managers to learn there.
Well, go to Joe Torre, right?
Good one.
Yankees suffered a long time, and then they finally brought in a guy who'd had his head kicked in on several different opportunities. And I think there is a learning curve to the manager to understand how to handle the personalities within a dugout, as well as the personalities in the owner's box and in the management side of things.
Especially in New York.
That I think we have seen, and I think the Jays are a really good example of this, of hiring managers without the prerequisite life experience that's required to deal with 160 plus games of that pressure, right? Of understanding the multitude of personalities that you kind of have to be the captain of the ship on a really rolly sea, right? And so I think Crusher's probably right that there's going to be some back and forth on understanding who has the right skill set. But as dumb as it sounds, I'm sure when I was 30, I would have disagreed with this. But now that I'm in my 40s, I probably look at it and see that, no, there is something to be said for life experience in that specific role.
Yeah. Well, I think we're seeing it in hockey too, maybe even in this town, right?
Yeah.
Because not only are you dealing with the players, but you're also dealing with the guys upstairs.
Yeah.
And that can be as challenging as anything else.
And distracting.
Yeah, and distracting, especially if you're a young starting out coach or manager. Can you imagine trying to deal with the owner, your president, your GM, your assistant GMs?
Yeah, the owner's kids.
The owner's kids, right? That's a big one. It's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah.
Well, with the Oilers, you know, and dealing with that, they have a younger coach in Jay Woodcroft who's done some really good things with this team, but right now
a younger coach age-wise, but not experience-wise.
As a head coach in NHL, maybe.
As a head coach, but like this is a guy who's put in a lot of miles.
Mostly as an assistant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like this is not a 30-year-old who just wrapped up a playing career and is now starting coaching. He has been in the coach's booth starting with a video coach all the way through organizations, a head coach in the American Hockey League. He's a little bit of a different case of you may be right. He may still be too young for the role, but on the other hand,
he's too young.
His experience is older than what his face belies.
Well, what we're seeing with him, though, like where I'm going with this, is that a lot of changes to the lineups in the first 5 games. Just keeps tinkering it, keeps moving things around. Now there's going to be another change due to the fact that McDavid is out 1 to 2 weeks. But it seems like in the past, everything he did with this team worked. And right now it seems like he's maybe struggling to try to find that right fix for this team.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, honestly. But I'm not going to lie, like since McDavid's been in the league, whether it was Todd McClellan, whether it was Ken Hitchcock, whether it just seems like these guys have been shuffling lines for quite some time. And honestly, there hasn't been, there was, I think it was Todd McClellan when it was Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Leon Draisaitl, Kyler Yamamoto. That line was like super consistent for like the second, or that was Dave Tippett, yeah. And there, you know, we haven't had that, you know, besides the fact when Connor and Leon are like stacked, you know, that's one of the, obviously they can stack that line and it'll be good on any given night, but he's not getting any results, right? So I don't blame him. I don't fault him for shuffling the lines all these times. Like it's kind of nothing's really working. So might as well change it, in my opinion.
It is a group of guys that are trying to learn to play a different style from what they've played the last couple of years, right? Yeah. This is a group that wants to play more defensive, wants to play more zone. And like that learning curve is not just the players on the ice. That learning curve is also the coaches on the bench, knowing when to shuffle guys in and out, and also matchups. So and they also have some underperforming players right now.
Yeah, there's a lot going on with this team.
And part of that is an uncompetitive training camp, right? This was very much a steady as she goes training camp. Some of the key players weren't available due to injury, so we're seeing that bleed into the regular season as well. There's a lack of urgency, and there should be a lack of urgency. This is not a team that needs to prove that they're a playoff team. This is a team that needs to prove that they can contend for a Stanley Cup. So that's the situation and they are playing a lot of teams that do have that urgency to show that they are a playoff team.
Yeah.
You guys think they have a lack of urgency right now? Like they're not seeing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah,
because at least listening to them, it seems like they know that this is like. It seemed that I could sense a little urgency in their voices. I could sense that they're not getting these results, and there's a frustration coming out.
Frustration, understanding. I think you're absolutely right, but that doesn't translate into a body chemistry response, which is your adrenaline firing at the drop of the hat, right? Like, do you need 3 shifts to get up and ready to go, or are you hitting that ice looking to put somebody through the end boards? This is not a team that's looking to put anyone through the end boards right now. This is a team that's basically trying to rewire their brains on how they want to play shift to shift to shift.
How big is it to not have McDavid for 2 weeks?
I think it's fantastic.
We were just talking about this, and I honestly think it might be a blessing in disguise. Nothing's really going well for them right now, so maybe the team can figure some things out. They can learn how to play as a team without Connor, not rely on his, success and all of what he can do. And who knows? Maybe there's a line that Jay Woodcroft puts together while he's out, and that line gets going. The other guys get going, and then all of a sudden they're looking great. Put Connor in and go from there. So that's hypothetical, but I mean, it could really be a blessing in disguise.
Maybe this is a thing that sparks that urgency too, right?
Exactly.
Because they've been, they're playing like they're not under the gun almost, right? You'd almost want them to play like an underdog. So maybe this is a thing that sparks that urgency. Okay, we got to step it up.
For sure.
Captain's down. Let's go.
Yeah. Not only that, but there's a time like there's only one time to lose a player like a Connor McDavid, and it's in the first several weeks of a season because every week after this one gets more important. And of course, there's going to be the guy out there that goes, wins count the same, beginning of the year.
2 points.
But they don't, right? Like they don't, because there's also the evaluation aspect of things. Those wins and losses that you have in February are the ones that your GM uses to evaluate whether or not changes need to be made heading into a trade deadline, heading into a playoff series. The health and fitness of your team is more crucial in February and March than it is in October, because you need to know who's going to hold up to the rigors of playoff hockey. So they're not the same at this point. This is a lower stakes time. This is a perfect time to see, what does a Leon Draisaitl-led hockey team look like?
Mm-hmm. For this team, I fully agree. It's the teams that are playoff bubbles teams.
Yeah.
Where it's closer to 2 points now matter a lot more, still matter.
Sure.
Because you don't want to be sitting there March, April going, we missed out on 4 points. Those 2 games back in October that we blew, those are biting us in the behind right now. But for the Oilers, when you're a team that should be a cup contender, when you're a team that they should still. Look, they're not missing the playoffs. Still in my mind, I'm still not worried about that. So what are these 2 points? Or what are these points right now that you're missing costing you? Maybe division title.
Yeah, well,
maybe and also, big whoop. You're in the playoffs.
And also, we'll see if they miss out on those points, right? Like that's the other thing that you need to evaluate is how big of a deficit is no Connor McDavid to this lineup when it comes to winning and losing. We know the deficit as far as entertaining hockey is concerned. It's crushing. Yep. If I was a ticket holder over the next several weeks, I'd be a little upset right now that I don't get to see Connor McDavid.
Yeah.
But I don't know we won't know until it's over what it'll mean to actually wins and losses. Because I don't know if you've noticed, but there's 30 plus other teams out there that win hockey games without Connor McDavid every night. So
yeah, that's a good point.
Well, 31.
Yeah.
But some of those teams do have Sidney Crosby and Nate McKinnon,
right?
Cale Makar in there.
Right. But none of them are Connor McDavid, right? Like, we are still talking about a team that rolls out with a Leon Draisaitl as their best player, which I'm still convinced means you still have one of the top 4 players in the NHL playing on your team.
Well, it seems like in the past years, whenever Connor has gone out, Leon does step up and fill that void quite nicely. The year he won MVP was the year that McDavid missed a few games too that year, and it was because of Leon that the Oilers kept playing well. I think that was the year that ultimately it was COVID. Yeah. And the reason the Oilers stayed in that playoff spot before the shutdown, all that was because of Leon Draisaitl and stepping up. And we've seen in the past that Sidney Crosby's gone down, and what's happened in Pittsburgh, Malkin's just stepped up and he's done it. So
the bigger
you don't
question
have to
for
worry
me
about the top end. It's everything else.
I was going to say,
below.
You do worry about the top end, at least for me, is does Darnell Nurse, does Evan Bouchard,
defensively,
do they step up? Because right now, they have not stepped up. They have not been able to adjust to whatever is the new ask of them is being asked of them. So I don't know if that's just muscle memory is getting in the way of what they actually want to accomplish or what, but right now they seem to be slow out of the gate as far as picking up their new positions.
Crushing for Heritage Classic fans a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah, that's super
Oh, man.
Like you spend that cash, they ain't cheap.
No.
And you lose out on the best player in that setting, potentially.
Yeah.
Still not over. If he was healthy, would you put him in on Sunday? Like, let's say Saturday he gives you a good to go.
I personally wouldn't. I'd wait till they get back to some indoor ice and everything's a little more controlled. The weather's not questionable. I wouldn't, just on the bubble, just because that's a bubble situation. But I personally wouldn't.
Yeah, if he's not like 100%, it's not worth risking it just for the Battle of Alberta and the Heritage Classic. Yeah, although it does suck, and for sure he's gonna want to play that game like crazy.
Yeah, he'll want to play.
So that's tough. Yeah, that's super tough. But I don't know. I don't want to risk it. That's kind of scary.
I would be a terrible NHL head coach because I would with Connor McDavid. I'd be like, whatever you want to do, man. Like,
how you feeling, Connor?
Choice.
You'd be so tough with everyone else, but Connor,
I would be. But Connor? Like, you tell me one area when it comes to Connor McDavid and his physical fitness where he doesn't know more than you know about himself.
For sure. But if it's your choice, Will, You're running the organization, and it's your
like I
choice.
said, as soon as he says, "Yeah, I want to do it," I would be like, "Perfect." Like,
Gotcha.
Like,
Interesting.
There's not a better scout in the building than Connor McDavid on Connor McDavid.
Yeah,
right?
no, that's a good point.
As soon as he goes, "Yeah, I want to play," I would just get out of his way. Like, and as soon as he came to you and said, "I'm not feeling well," I'd pull him off the ice as well, right? Because he does not strike me as a guy that hides.
No, for sure.
Like that hides his status,
Yeah.
right? That when he's not feeling well, he probably says something about it. Like he strikes me as an athlete who physically is very open about what his body is doing and how it's responding, because he seems incredibly open to coaching on it as well. Like this isn't a guy that goes to the cabin in the summertime and just does his own regime. Like he is flying all over the place looking for different expertise and different feedback. So
Yeah.
Have you ever been part of teams where a player was playing injured and it was a detriment to the team, and there had to be those discussion whether he should keep playing or
Yeah.
not?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. A couple times. So that's where the conversation in those critical time frames where things are a
Raul
little more.
Mondesi would have been a liar.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
There's a player I never would have trusted. Like,
Right. Yeah. No kidding. But even with the Eskimos too, right? When I was there, I was, working with them for like better part of 4 years. And there was guys that they want to play though. And that's where
football's different.
No,
right?
it is.
Like they're just wired
See,
different.
this is the cool thing. I've just been lucky as all get up, right? Like the football guys. What an incredible environment, man. But it's totally different than hockey or baseball.
Yeah.
And I used to do a lot with the Oilers early on. I used to do help with all their testing, doing the VO2 max and the wind gates and stuff during camp. And I actually ran the rookie camp, the dry land for the rookie camp for a couple of years. Just a great, but different mentality. Baseball is an entirely different universe, for crying out loud. But in each one of those scenarios, there's players they want to play. And sometimes you got to step in and say, hold on, time out. Maybe it's better if we step back, let it sit for a couple days, because they want to go. Connor's going to want to go. And is that the best person to make that decision? It has to be, I think, medical staff. Everybody has to be involved, and he'll be open to that 100%, right? But we've had guys where we got to, urgent. We sit down, and I've been part of these meetings. Okay, you're 80%. Your 80% is probably better than any other option we have. Let's go.
Yeah.
Trainer, doctors, is he okay? Well, of this and this and this. But if that's where I sort of came up with the mindset of never let a minor injury become major. And it doesn't matter what level of sport you're at. But sometimes those guys, you got to pull back on the reins and protect them from themselves sometimes, for sure. So it's a balancing act.
Well, it's tough as a coach too, because like your job is to win football games or baseball games, whatever it is, and you want your best players out there. And when you're told that for this, you're told Connor's ready to go, there's going to be that urge, like, Connor's ready to go. But that's sometimes short-term thinking when you should be looking long-term.
Yeah.
But I'm with you more, Will.
Yeah.
When it comes to Connor, I think if he comes and says, I'm good.
You go, okay.
It's one where it's like, okay, well, I'll quickly go to the doctors.
See,
does everything look good from what you guys...
Exactly.
But like,
Connor's going to do that though. Like he's going to go to Dr. Nadeau and to TD, and they're going to go, okay, you're in a really good spot. They're going to do their tests, and he's going to go through the testing. He's going to clear the testing, and he's going to go, I'm ready. Let's rock and roll. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But if he fails one of those tests,
there's no chance at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Whatever the test
I
is.
would never trust a football player, because especially a professional football player, because the amount of disassociation they have to do within their own brains to get to that point. Like they've spent the last 20 years lying to themselves about how they feel just to get to that point. Like I would never trust a football player's opinion, because they could be sitting there with an arm, like their arm hanging off, clearly dislocated, and they'd be like,
coach.
I'm good. I'm good. And it's also because of the nature of that sport. You are such a replaceable asset.
Yeah.
They are so used to never saying no,
Next
because
man
they're
up, baby.
yeah, because they're used. So yeah, football players, I would never trust a football player.
Yeah.
I would always trust the doctor in that situation. But
Yeah.
Connor McDavid. I mean, it's part of what makes Connor McDavid who he is he is a next level athlete compared to even his peers. So
We saw his comeback from the leg injury,
Right.
right?
This
Like,
just
it was,
Brilliant.
and that's where
Insane.
it's
Brilliant.
okay. Well, if the doctors are saying everything looks pretty good, and then Connor goes, no, I'm ready to go.
Two big things there. Like the return to play for Connor, because that was not your typical average injury, right? That was a potentially catastrophic situation that was handled really, really well with his performance team. But also, you know, if you think back to, you know, some of the other situations, even in football, right? These guys coming back, but go back to in the concussion area early on with Sidney Crosby coming back. Like the way that was handled by Pittsburgh, and it was very, very covered in the media. It was like front page stuff. That and this is maybe just my opinion. So I'd be interested to hear what you guys say. Did that change how sport handles their players? I think it had an influence on return to play from top to bottom. And I'm actually very thankful that they were so open with Sidney's return to play from that head injury and all the treatments they were trying for him. Because I think it also showed how serious this stuff could be.
Well, Sidney Crosby reminds me of someone who, like a soldier who's on the battlefield and there's bullets whizzing by him. And he's like, well, this is part of the job.
Yeah.
And then he has a real close call and he goes, this is part of the job. And then he gets hit the exact moment that someone was telling him he should have ducked. And like, if we remember the Sidney Crosby situation, he suffered a concussion.
Yeah.
And then willed himself to go back out there and immediately suffered the next one. Yeah. And it was that... It seemed like everyone got snapped into shape on that.
Yeah.
Where it was just kind of like, oh, we really screwed up.
Yep.
We really screwed up and we came close to ending this career. And it seemed like it was sort of that whole 180-degree turn where it was like, oh, we need to take this seriously. We need to get smart about this, and we need to find patience.
I think that was an important moment in sport, man.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not just talking hockey, and I'm not just talking professional hockey. That was an important moment in sport, maybe more than we know. But internally, that was a conversation in every boardroom of every team in every professional sport. The way they handle the guys' return to play, because that was a shot across the bow, and thank goodness it turned out the way it did. Do you think, or am I over the?
Well, I think hockey particularly went through the 90s where people like you started appearing on the scene and started training all the athletes at a much higher level.
Yeah.
But the respect for the damage that was being done was not given any heed. And so we went through mid-90s to the mid-2000s where you had Mario Lemieux's career being cut short because of cross-checking. The very simple aspect of his back got destroyed because of the way that they let players play against him. You had Eric Lindros and his brother Brett, but Eric Lindros, who was a generational player, saw his career and his impact on the NHL cut short because they just let people target his head constantly, not realizing that everybody else on the ice was getting just as fast and just as big as Eric Lindros naturally was. And so it did. There was like a 15-year delay between when the athletes elevated their physical ability to when organizations realized, oh, this means there's more extreme damage happening as well, right? Like that guys aren't colliding at 20 kilometers an hour. They're now colliding at 30 kilometers an hour. And guys aren't 190 pounds. They're now 210 pounds. Like it was that sort of where the science led to the problems. And it took 15 years for the science to also step in and go, there's some major problems
that's
happening.
A great phrase. Like, that's a great perspective, man. Yeah. This is actually quite an important conversation if you think about it, because just in that time or towards the end of that time, the NFL exploded, right?
Yeah.
With the whole concussion thing. And I mean, there's the movies, everybody knows the story there. But the science that we now have in terms of player health, these are the things that spurred it on. For good or bad or however it came down, future generations of athletes are much better off because of it all. And we have two people in our community here, Dr. Nadeau and Dr. Martin Mrazek, who are integral players in that whole concussion management thing. They consult with the CFL, they work with the NFL, they work with the rugby unions. They're flying to London. There's two people in our community that are really, really major players there, and getting to talk to those guys about what's going on inside. It's fascinating, man, where it's come. But now where, you talk about the performance side, on our side, it's like we're trying to work together with those. We have to, right? Because in all of our programs, I could tell you right now, it doesn't matter whether it's our Olympic squash players, which is another thing I want to talk to you guys about today, because hallelujah, I've been saying it for 100 years. Fraser and I used to battle it out on the squash court, by the way.
Nice.
But so we'll talk about that. Actually,
Prison rules.
Yeah, prison rules. Yeah.
Who has the edge? Who's the better
Fraser
one?
kicked my butt, man.
I don't think so.
No, it was actually good games,
Yeah.
like really, really good games. But looking at how we've managed athletes in terms of player performance, the number one priority in every one of our programs, whether it's our figure skaters or our offensive linemen, injury prevention. And here's the thing, it's a long game, right? The injury prevention doesn't start in a summer training program. It takes time, years and years and years to build that hardiness that can create those durable players, right? And that has to be part of the program. And then performance comes aside. So we know physical training. There's not an athlete we can't make faster, more powerful, more agile. We understand the physiology side. The brain side, though, is the most fascinating thing. And technology now that we're using with our athletes, we're actually mapping their brains. We're looking at brain activity in certain situations. We are training the brain to react, but it's also giving us input in terms of what players should be focusing on in the play. Are they looking? I like to say to them, are you looking or are you seeing? And then if you are seeing, are you looking at the right place and seeing the right things? And we can train all this now. We can train your brain real time. And that's something we've never ever been able to do in the history of human existence. So I'm predicting that in the next 5 to 10 years, we should see, or maybe 15 to 20 years, however long it takes, we talked about that 15-year span for players to come through a system and then survive a broken development system, and it's very broken, to get to the top, to influence top performance. I don't think professional sport is anywhere near where it's going to be 15, 20 years from now in terms of what athletes are able to do.
Because you still look at guys that talk about the best in their fields, and they're still pointing out things that they're not training for.
Right.
Like Dominic Hasek was always the perfect example for me, that it's only in the last 10 to 15 years where you've had goalie coaches talk about eyesight.
Right.
And talk about tracking. Lift weights, fast twitch, all that kind of stuff was covered. But for the entirety of Dominic Hasek's career, if you talk to other guys, they were like, well, watch his eyes. In any still image you saw of Dominic Hasek, if you could zoom in on the eyes, you know what the eye was looking at? The puck.
Yeah.
And he always knew exactly where it was. And it took another 15 years after that for them to be like, maybe we need to be developing some.
Was he training that, I wonder?
Well, that would
can
be
we get him? Can we talk to him?
Let me just make a call right now.
Well, but I'd love to talk to him
Think about
it.
the helmet that he used.
Oh, he's with the,
he used a completely different visor, and it was because of his vision.
I tell you what,
Crazy.
we're going to get a hold of him. I'm going to get him on the show to ask.
And so you're absolutely right. We still haven't unlocked all the areas for athletes to really develop.
Here's the question. Okay, so I got a couple questions for you guys.
I love how fired up again.
No, but
this is
good for me though, because it gets.
I love it.
You know how sometimes you get thinking, you get in your.
Yes.
But this is the kind of conversation that maybe expands my thinking as well, because all I'm trying to do is help my athletes achieve their potential. We don't know how good they can get. But I will tell you this, we've had athletes, guys who are in their 7th, 8th year of a professional sport, and we're going, what? How is this possible? So undertrained, so inadequately trained and yet they're still successful. So I love it because I'm going, oh, this guy reeks of potential, and he's already an established professional player. So I like that stuff because we know we can help that athlete. It just comes to problem solving, right? If we can clearly identify a problem that an athlete's having or a player's having an in-game performance, we can attack it. But that identifying those problems clearly, that takes the GM, the coach, the goalie coach, the positional coach. That takes the athlete. That's the team approach. That's what we do in our programs. The amount of time I spend talking to coaches and training staff, or if a player has their own performance team somewhere else, where are they at? What do they need to do? But all with a grain of salt, right? Because everybody has their own opinions. And then you try to narrow it down to something that's tangible for that particular player to attack, to help him increase his value in the game. Because that's, at the end of the day, that's the name of the game. But let me ask you guys this. Okay, and this is a great perspective thing. If we were to look at Wayne Gretzky, I watched those guys. Guy Lafleur and was my first favorite player of all time. And I was a kid and I didn't even understand. I was disappointed. I remember being a little kid and I was disappointed when I found out hockey players were human.
Yeah.
I thought they were like the little guys. I'm going, what? That's just a dude? What are you talking about?
There's a lot of kids who think they're just video games.
Yeah,
now,
right. But this is way back in the day, and I don't know where my mind was. But then I remember the Canadians for some reason, and it was Guy Lafleur that I just, whatever. But if we took Wayne Gretzky, right? Just because I remember watching him in awe as a player and a kid that age. If we put Wayne Gretzky in today's league, how exceptional is he?
Does he get the full training of this day and age?
Yes, let's just say he's a player today.
Then he's still Wayne Gretzky.
Yes.
Yeah. He's probably 10 pounds heavier, but he's still Wayne Gretzky.
Right. Because he just had an intangible something. So, like, but I have to talk to you guys about this. If we look at Connor McDavid, right? The one thing he has is his speed. I would love to just go back, even just sit down and talk with him a little bit about how, or people around him probably better people to talk to as he was growing up. He was faster than anybody else, right? And through development, whether it's natural or training, then he started training, got faster. But the way he sees and perceives the game is different than anybody on the ice. And that's partly why I think he's able to do these incredible, exceptional things.
Well, it's a known aspect, but when you talk to high-end coaches, the thing they always bring up is panic point. And so it's when you see those incredibly high-end athletes that are achieving it, their panic point is just lower than anyone else you're ever going to meet. So the panic point is that point at which the wanting to react overcomes the holding back, right? So squash is a perfect example. When you and I play squash, you know that there's an ultimate point at when the ball drops at which you want to make contact. And it's hard to perfect it because you need to slow yourself down because there's a window at which you can hit the ball. And usually as soon as it enters that window, you're trying to hit it back. Like it's a hot potato sort of aspect. Whereas that's not the optimum point, right? Like
Good point.
There's an optimum drop point at which all of a sudden your shot's going to be that much more deadly. And it's the same for just about every other sport where there is a hot potato aspect that you have. And we see it with hockey players all the time where you're like, man, if you would have delayed just a half breath, this would have opened up. And the Connor McDavids of the world, their panic point is just so much lower than all of their other peers that they are either able to take the distractions out of it and find the perfect moment, or they also understand when it's time to panic as well, like when it's time to get the puck off the stick. So their ability to process the emotions of the game is, I think, probably what separates them from everyone else.
Yeah, interesting. I like that. That's the brain game, man. I love that.
Well, I think the brain game is probably the next area, and it will be the most controversial. Because no one's going to want to be labeled this, but like the high-end athlete is there's going to be a psychologist and a psychiatrist and a group that are going to be training serial killers, like for lack of a better term, that sort of almost quasi-antisocial sort of behavior. My perfect example of this is Novak Djokovic in tennis. In men's tennis, you see it way more, and it's because it's all on that one individual, but like that sort of borderline antisocial behavior is not a glitch. It's part of what
Golf
makes them great.
Kind of see that?
Yeah, it's part of what makes them great. Like when you are on a tennis court, the guy who is enjoying himself and happy to be there, like your physical ability and your understanding of the sport can get you so far, but at a certain point you also have to have that lust to destroy your opponent.
That ruthlessness. And it's why you see them it's why you see them have these breaks on court and in public and in society in particular. It's because their brains have been wired to incentivize that type of thinking, that type of
I'm going to destroy this place.
I heard a great story about Federer growing up, and it was...
Well, you talk about a serial killer. You watch that guy play, and there is a surgicalness to him where you're like, that's cold-blooded, man.
It's beautiful.
But when he was younger, though, there was an interview with his mother, and he was with one of the big tours that he started, and there's this little profile on him that I didn't know about him. When he was young, he would have made John McEnroe look like a saint from the sounds of it. He was throwing his rackets, screaming. And there was an event, and I think his mother was involved with the conversation, but somebody said to him, hey, look, you're a good tennis player, but if you're going to be great, you better learn to harness this stuff and put it in the right. Yeah. And he said that he took some time and just thought about this, processed it, and changed his game and to what he is today. So he is a ruthless killer on the court, without question, right? And that, sometimes I think is changeable. Here's a great story for you guys. So I was working with some of Canada's top squash players and the junior guys. A local player named Matt Iwanyk, who I started working with as like 13 or 14 years of age, and he was ranked, his world rankings were actually quite good, but he was wanting to make the men's pro tour. And we were just training one day, and I said, hey, Matt, what other sports did you play as a kid? He goes, no, I played baseball. I really liked hockey. I said, so how'd you wind up playing squash? Well, his family played squash, so it's part of a family thing. But I said, but why did you pick this? He goes, you know what? I missed the team sports. He says, but I just couldn't handle my fate being in the hands of other people. He says, I wanted to be in charge of what happened to me. That's why
I hated my teammates. And
no, he loved his teammates, but he wanted to be in control of his own fate. Talking about those individual sport players, it's a different mentality, man.
Yeah, well,
That's super cool.
You can train power. Like the easiest thing to get out of an athlete is for them to hit something as hard as they can,
right?
And they'll want to train on that as much as possible. But you watch it, like those racket sports and stuff like that. The thing that really differentiates the killers from the guys that they're just playing, like Milos Raonic would be the perfect example. Guy's got an absolute cannon of a serve, but what he doesn't have is the ability to humiliate. He doesn't understand that you don't humiliate by blasting it by a guy at 200 miles an hour. You humiliate him with the drop shot at the front of the net.
Right.
That he just can't get to.
He
Right.
always struggled once the serve was returned.
Right.
He knew how to have the serve, but once someone was able to get it back, then his game kind of dropped.
You look at a Jokic, you look at a Federer, and they don't try and let it onto their face, but it betrays them from time to time when they have that soft angled shot that just destroys their opponent. You can see it on their face. Like,
take that.
They love that more than an ace. Every day of the week. They'll take that over an ace any time because they know that they've humiliated. Like, this is what I mean by it will be controversial. Like, this is what they call intangibles. Like, what are the intangibles of this athlete? Well, we're talking about, like, how much do they want to make it hurt? And should you train that in someone who doesn't have it naturally or not?
So the question would be, is it trainable? Yes, that's totally trainable.
But should you train it?
But should you? Like the atomic bomb. We can, but should we?
Yeah.
Honestly, right?
Like,
and that's
should
one of
you encourage that type of mental mindset in young people? I don't know if you should. Like, I think the world...
Well, you wait a little bit.
I think the world needs...
give them to their teams.
I think the world needs way more people who don't play tennis but get along on the street than play tennis.
No, for sure.
And crush their opponents.
For sure. The good thing is, though, kids and people in general self-select, right? That's why one of my daughters goes into math. The other one is a mogul skier, and the other one is drama arts. Three kids who grew up in the same house. They have very, very totally different interests. You know, and
two of them wanted to break Krushell's heart.
I was gonna say, there's only one that's following in the footsteps.
No, I'm proud of all of them. They're amazing. They're amazing. But it's interesting,
the moguls,
right?
Let me tell you about the
what these kids do. But kids self-select, right? Some kids go into science and math, but kids will go where they have some success, right? And the things they enjoy. What do kids enjoy? Things they're good at.
Yeah.
And that's why I think our entire system, our youth development system, from academics to sport to the arts, is just so wrong. It's just so off base. And when it comes to sport, we are missing the mark big time.
Yeah.
Big time. Especially look at the dropout rates, the injury rates especially. And it's not for it's with the greatest of intentions, right? With the greatest of intentions that, you know, in sport anyway, that we give our kids every opportunity to be a great hockey player or a great tennis player. But is it the best thing to do? It's a big question. And that's why it gets back kind of that Gretzky question that I have for you guys. If we put Wayne Gretzky in today's world, how much better could he have been? And not only that, can we train the guys around him to be as good or better? Like,
I was just going to say, like, statistically, he wouldn't be as great.
Right.
Because the competition would be better.
Right.
Right. Like, he came in a time of expansion, so there was a dilution of talent. He came in a time of old thinking, right? So you had the European influence, maybe a little bit with the Toronto Maple Leafs in the 70s, but it had not been embraced the way that Glenn Sather embraced it with the Edmonton Oilers in the way that they attacked and played hockey. So there was a confluence of events that aided in the 215-point Wayne Gretzky that we got to see.
I never thought about that. I've in all the years, I've never really contemplated the dilution of the talent pool because of expansion. Like, we think about it, like Major League Baseball wants to expand 2 teams, and they want to go potentially to Mexico City and potentially, hopefully, back to Canada with a second team if things work out. We're going to see, because Manfred said that, hey, once the A's are taken care of, which they are now, and once the Tampa Rays are taken care of with their new stadium, they are now they're going to address expansion. I'm actually quite excited, but we've had conversations about the talent. Is there enough great players to have 2 more teams?
Well, hockey wants to go with 2 more.
Right.
And there's talk of hockey's right now 32. I think the number's 36 by the end of this decade. So you're adding 4 more teams.
Yeah, you can't.
Which is, you have to ask, is there a talent pool? When the Ottawa Red Blacks came into the CFL, it took 2-3 years for the Canadian talent pool to catch back up, because naturally you have to find X amount more Canadians for the Red Blacks. Some, you know, in their the expansion draft, they take a couple of Canadians, they go sign a couple of Canadians, and all of a sudden you could tell for the first couple of years there was a little talent drop off in the CFL because there just wasn't there. And then now we've caught back up, and the Canadian talent is there. But when the Schooners come, or whoever comes, we're going to see that happen again. But in the NHL, like MLB, I would think there's enough for 2 more teams based on how many players are playing in minor baseball right now. You'd like to think that you'd be able to. But hockey wants to go to 36.
That's incredible to me.
Which is 4 more.
So here's a question for you guys. Hold on, Will. Cross your fingers and hold that thought. Because listen, if that's the case, because honestly, I never contemplated Gretzky's greatness in relationship to a deleted talent pool. So is Ovechkin more incredible than we anticipate right now? Because
because Gretzky's, there's still some great players in Gretzky's era.
No, for sure.
And he had how many more points than the second best player of his era?
And even today,
the difference between Gretzky and the second best player in that era
light years,
was a massive difference.
Yeah,
and that's
until
where the
Lemieux came along. Until Lemieux came along.
Okay,
and then. And that goes to the different debate, like, which is greatest versus best you ever saw, right? Like,
which is where McDavid is coming into the conversation.
Because there's different athletes for that. Like, basketball is a perfect example for me, where it's like the greatest player to ever play was Michael Jordan. The best I ever saw was LeBron James. Right? Like,
well, and ChatGPT says LeBron James is the greatest ever.
That's right. Yeah. But like, hockey would be the same thing. If you're talking about that Gretzky era, the greatest ever was Wayne Gretzky. The best I ever saw was Mario Lemieux.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'm going to get the name wrong. A guy from TSN, he just retired. Is it Steve Dryden? Can't remember. He was like their quiz master. He did a lot of stuff behind the scenes. He wrote an article last year, I think it was, where he ultimately said McDavid is the most talented player he's ever
seen. Yeah.
Like number one.
Which is the way it should be. Right?
And also like made it very clear that I'm not saying he's better than Gretzky. Gretzky's the greatest ever. But you know, in terms of other people have had this conversation too in this debate. Tom Brady is in my mind the greatest quarterback ever, but someone like Aaron Rodgers might have been a more talented quarterback in terms of everything.
Sure.
Like you throw him on the
right.
New England Patriots of those years, he's winning more than 1 Super Bowl or something like that.
I don't know. Does he get along with anyone?
At that time he did. At that time, the early part of his career he did. He would have been fine with that one.
I like to look back to learn, though. Like, I really do. I like to look back and learn. We have now a great a great pool of knowledge, that we can look back on, like this conversation today.
Yeah.
That's incredibly interesting, right?
Yeah, best I ever saw is really interesting,
Yeah.
right? Like, because that's when, for me, a Dominic Hasek comes into play as well, which is hard in a sport like hockey because it's a completely different position from anything else that you saw. But my goodness, when he was at the top, he won the Czech Republic a gold medal when it was best on best play.
Right.
And it's not because the Czech Republic had a great hockey team. It's that he by himself was better than anyone else
It's
out there.
because Mark Crawford left Gretzky.
Oh, is that why?
It's only because of Mark Crawford.
Thank God he did leave him on the bench because it allows us to have this debate rather than us going, remember that time Dominic Hasek stoned him and won a gold medal?
It's all Mark Crawford's fault. Jeff Krushell, Krush Performance, Wil Fraser, who I think I spelt it wrong on there. I was going man of Mister. I think it says man on Mister or something like that.
I'll take
Got
it.
that wrong.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tube Socks, for messaging as we're doing this. And YouTube, Trev, who now you could slide out and
Right on. Are
grab.
we taking a break? Or
No,
Get out of here, Trev!
We'll just keep
He asked
talking.
you nicely.
I'll be on my way.
We'll
Thanks,
just keep
boys.
talking.
Keep liking, keep subscribing.
Oh, like that. And then
Yeah.
just send Lieutenant Eric on in when you can. Make the little switch out there and all of that. Thanks for yelling at our guy.
I thought you'd been very polite, and he wanted
just
to
wasn't
fight with
listening.
you about it.
He wasn't paying attention, and he just wanted to stick around. He's got work to
It's
do.
the story of your life, hey? People just are never listening.
They don't. They don't, Will. And then they realize afterwards how right I was.
Oh, there you go.
And how much they should have listened to me.
Yeah.
And then they go, oh, I should have listened to you. And I'm like, yeah, you should have.
Yeah.
And and then they still don't listen to me later. And it's like, well,
It's what keeps you warm all by yourself at night, hey?
again, the only person that can handle me is me.
The thoughts of how right you really were.
Yeah, I haven't missed anything, have I?
Nope.
So, how's everybody doing?
How's your?
I saw you earlier.
Yes. How was
Yeah.
your big win?
My big win.
You just won this big thing in Tim Hortons today.
Yes, I got a redemption card.
Yeah.
A Blake Wheeler redemption card.
Nice.
I then gave Tim Hortons all of my personal information.
Yeah.
And the card should be arriving. It says anywhere from 4 to 6 months.
Yeah.
So I'll be
It's a
waiting.
card you get?
Yeah, it's a jersey, piece of his jersey card.
Oh.
I thought it was like a. I
That's
thought
an
I got a
actual
jersey or like a
That's what I
car
thought.
or something, but
It takes 4 to 6 months.
yeah, one in every 1,800 packs.
And how many packs have you opened over all
More
these
than
years?
1,800. I just like that I had to give all my information. Now it's like, we'll talk to you in about a year if
How
you're
much
lucky.
better would that prize be if the piece of his jersey was unwillingly taken?
Like ripped.
Yeah, exactly.
Not like a cookie gut.
Yeah,
I like how some of them,
like-
some of the CFL ones, you'll get a piece and it's the sponsorship. Like the one badge, you get the big jersey, the one badge where there's the sponsor. I'm getting a sponsor logo. Anyways, I hope this is a little better. But
Like Blake Wheeler went out on the ice and he's like, there's a
There's
piece
a
of
hole.
there's a hole. What happened to my jersey? Like
a string from one of the
That's
drawn.
that's what I would want.
Tim Hortons has representatives just stealing jerseys across
Just going in with a little scissors and cutting out chunks of.
What part of the jersey do you want?
I would like a part that signifies that he was a Jet, like a blue, like like something that maybe a little bit of the logo would be
I'd
nice.
say, the logo would be nice. Because football, there's not.
I know some guys get the cards released and it's like a letter off the nameplate, and then you can collect all of the letters to spell out the guy's name, which is more than 1 in 1,800.
I'd like the made in Taiwan tag. That would be.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The sponsorship, like something really.
I want
Really
the
get in
size
there.
of the jersey.
Yeah,
the double
yeah.
XL,
Yeah.
made in Taiwan.
Give me all that.
just the washing instructions tag.
hang dry.
That's what I
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hang dry, do not iron,
Cold wash only.
Yeah.
wash.
Yeah. That'd be really special.
Yeah, well worth all my info in a 4 to 6 month wait for sure.
I like the 4 to 6 month wait as if they don't have this already or something.
Bloody card. Get
how
it
do
out
they
there.
not have
I
them?
just signed up online. It took me 2 seconds. You get the info. Put it in the mail.
Is
They
there?
are selling your info to so
Well,
many
they
people.
are, of course. It's up for it's an online auction, dark web. There's a live auction for my postal code
It's true.
now live.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have to make enough money selling your info to buy the jersey so they can make this card for
It's
you.
and I'm the sucker that keeps buying them.
Yeah. Is there a more like old school excuse than blaming the post office for something?
Right.
Like, must have got stuck in the mail. Should have been there by now. Sorry. While they're putting the stamp on the envelope.
Well, that's
Like,
just it. Yeah. No. My postman's a saint.
I agree. My postman's
Wouldn't
a
do
saint
me like
as
that.
well.
Yeah, he nominated me in my yard. He nominated me. I always say he's actually a pretty good guy. Kind of an out there. That's what we get.
Wait,
along.
do you get mail at your house?
Yes, I have a box.
still
yeah.
get-
How many people's like that's so rare
I'm,
in Edmonton?
I'm rural, and I have a box at the end of my driveway.
Do you get the little thing that comes up and down?
Yeah, dude.
Get out of here, really?
Yeah.
And
so,
they
so what does it
follow
mean? Up is...
Up means that there's mail waiting for
Oh, and then you just take it down after and you put it...
Now, they don't pick up because it used to also be that if you threw it up and put mail in, they would take it for you, like outgoing mail as well. They don't do that anymore.
I still have to find a red box if I want to send anything out.
Do you get mail dropped off?
No, we were at one of the community boxes down the end of the road.
South, baby.
Yeah, when I built on my acreage, that's what they told us. And the community box was on the other side of the Trans-Canada Highway, like Highway 16, and another like 3 kilometers away. It was basically an 8-kilometer drive to get there. And so we literally got to go into the post office and point to where it was. And they were like, oh, okay, well, I guess you get home delivery then.
Nice.
It's like, see, this is why I'm like, go easy on the post office.
But do most homes?
They work. Yeah.
But do most homes have the communal?
I think it's been moving towards
basically any new construction. Is
I'm
is
surprised that there's any home in Edmonton still.
I like it. The guy gets around. He does a nice walk. I mapped out his like route, and he gets a good exercise. Walks around and sees all the yards.
This year?
Christmas present. I'll give him. Oh yeah, absolutely. I didn't know him that well last year. Yeah.
I always drop a little something.
I knew the guy at the old condo there, and all he did was show up in the lobby and populate again. We all had our little sweet boxes, but he was a good guy too. Really good. They always go the distance.
And then the one suite where he basically has to like jam it in with the other 18 pounds.
Half the suites weren't even used, so they're getting like fake mail from people. And you're right, nobody's emptying them, so he just keeps cramming it back in there. And nobody's really. There's no like box caretaker, I guess you would say.
He shows up with some sort of like wooden implement that he can like really start to jam stuff in.
Get her in there. I'm still getting some mail though from the past.
Yeah,
I think you get a name not even from them, but from somebody I would guess is before them or something like that.
Like any mail,
nothing
like
good,
magazines.
No. I used to have the Scientologist in the condo.
Oh yeah,
the lady that lived. She was high up.
You got some Dianetics.
Oh yeah,
nice.
like pamphlets
she was high
and everything.
Up.
Nice.
She was pretty high up there.
So
she paid a lot of
money.
She got a lot of like gold member stuff. I remember. And it was all coming to me.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Without having to pay for it.
I didn't have to
So
pay.
usually
You have to pay pretty much all of your money
So like
for
any
something like
inside stuff like that we wouldn't know about?
It wasn't anything unknown. It was just, again, it was kind of like getting the Sears catalog. You had pictures of people enjoying their life and like, could be you if you go through this 10-step test of
you got to first take
dialectics.
It's the several billion-year contract you have to sign to join the Navy. That's a bit of a sticker
Sea Guard
for
or whatever it is.
Yeah, if they could knock that down like a $500 million or something like that, I might.
You've always wanted to.
Yeah, exactly.
South Park episode, baby.
How long do I want to sail on the open seas? Really? Like $1 billion seems like a long.
I really wish I still got that mail.
Yeah.
You can't buy that mail.
Maybe about 50 mil.
Right. Yeah.
850, maybe 9.
Yeah.
Maybe I could do 900 mil.
Yeah.
That extra 100
9 million. Yeah, exactly.
It's a little rough.
That's a long haul.
That's a lot of sailing. Yeah. It's a lot of ports to call. Yeah.
Sacrifice, I think they call it. Yeah.
Yeah, but like think of all the locales you got to go visit.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Several 100 million times.
Yeah. It's how everyone loves being on the water.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay for the boat.
Yeah. Yeah. And all the what's the testing that they do for you?
I forgot what it's called.
Yeah. All the testing.
The personality test.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Stan went off the charts in South Park.
Yeah. You could probably stand to do that a couple of times.
I want to see the test.
Like. Yeah.
What do you mean? I could do it a couple times.
Well,
you only do it once. And it tells you your number. And it tells you if you're happy or not.
You beat your score, though.
I was just going to say, they would give you stats and you'd keep going back.
I'm going to improve my numbers. I'm going to check my standing today.
I'm going to buy my own machine just to play with.
Practice.
Get where I need to be.
I recently started donating blood regularly.
Yeah, good.
And so they have an app now for Canada Blood Services that gives you your stats and like your bleed time, the amount of blood you gave, what your hemoglobin level was, and stuff like that, and graphs it out for you. And so, like...
The fancies, I think they call it. Yeah,
this last time, my nurse actually was like, you need to slow down. She goes, what was your last time? I was like, I think I was sub 5 minutes. She goes, okay, well, you're sub 4 minutes right now, and I'm a little worried that you're going to pass out on me, so you need to stop squeezing that squeeze toy as aggressively as you are.
But it's good number.
And I'm like, you wouldn't give stats if you didn't want me to race.
It's true. Yeah,
So you see a number and you want to be that.
Fastest ever.
Yeah.
So how often are you going in?
Every 2 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you squeeze it to pump out blood?
Yeah. So depending on which arm they use, they'll let you. I've had to have this discussion with my one son. So my son who's 17, you can start donating at 17. He has started. He's already done 4 since his birthday in April.
Better numbers.
Beating your numbers? Beating the
Not
old
a
man?
chance. No, kid doesn't stand a chance. But my other son, who is 16, he is deathly afraid of needles. Like we're going to go and get immunized this afternoon, and I still have to go with him just to give him
The thought of it is,
confidence and stuff like that. And I've told him, I was like, when you get your immunizations, the worst part of it is that they approach you with a really sharp object and then tell you not to get tense, right? Relax your arm is what they say. And it's like, that's the hard. I was like, whereas when you give blood, they literally give you a squeeze toy and tell you to squeeze it as hard as possible it makes all the difference psychologically in the world. It is the easiest
and
thing
it doesn't
to do.
affect the
No, it's like they want that vein to pop as much as possible. And so, it's
So then, but how do you control your blood?
well, so basically the more that you can draw blood into that region, the faster it's going to pump out. So you
get better numbers.
Literally just
So you keep squeezing.
just keep squeezing.
So you just go.
Oh, dude, it's ridiculous. Yeah, like I just sit there the whole time, like just doing this, which is why the nurse came to me and was like, put her hand on it. It was like, you need to slow down. Like,
and you work on this when you're not. You go home and you're like,
he's got that stress ball.
Exactly.
And he's just giving
hours a day. I'll show her next time.
Will's got that strong flow rate, man. He's doing good.
Hey, you win championships in the offseason, right? That's the whole thing. That's he's training, and that's the whole.
That pretty much is exactly it. Of any sport I train for, it would be donating.
You
blood
walk
these
in
days.
there and the whispers, oh, he's back.
Yeah. Well,
This is gonna be
honestly,
quick.
there's nothing else in my life where there's stats and a
This
score.
is it. Yeah. You've gone through the walking app, and now you can be like, hey,
So do you not have to go to like lower altitude? Like you don't want to be high altitude.
Oh,
What's
yeah.
going
How
to be the
does that-
best for blood flow?
You know what? I've never.
Did they donate in like
That's a
10
really
grade?
good
Where would
call.
it be? Because
should I-
athletes need it. If you could train at the higher altitude, you're better to go.
Yeah,
like,
I see.
For
Like
you,
you think
blood flow.
it would flow better. See,
I
I'm
know.
just thinking the atmospheric pressure would work more to push it out if you were at
That's
sea
what
level.
I would think too. But working at altitude, your blood volume would go up. So you should do altitude
I
training.
should. Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to figure
And then
out.
come down to sea level to get blood.
yeah.
You'll be out in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
We're under 2 here.
I'm ready to bust you.
Yes, let's go.
Crush is going to take you training.
I love this.
You guys go up to the mountains,
Yeah.
do a couple ski runs
Yeah.
while you're skiing. Really give that a try.
Yeah.
We'll get your blood volume up 5%.
I'll
which should
start
probably
bringing.
about 10 days.
I'll start bringing my own packages for like the hoses that go through, so that they're a bigger bore.
Joe Belineski in the Joe Belineski in the nasty chat says, phrase, talk to him and get 38 donations like me, rookie. Yeah, well, Joe,
38, good for you, bud.
But what's your
That's
time?
fantastic.
Have you had
Exactly.
a sub
Yes.
4 minute?
Listen,
Yeah.
anyone can go into it and get that into the vein and then surf social media for the next 15 minutes. Yeah, I can't even get my phone open. That's how fast it is.
Talk to him when you're, yeah.
It may be because I'm browning out as well, so I can't actually focus on anything, but
Doesn't matter.
I'm a little lightheaded over here.
Joe, has the nurse ever said slow down to you?
Yeah, that's a good point, yeah.
Until you had that, then you could come to us with your numbers of going 38 times in. But honestly, congrats on that.
Good job. Yeah.
So we're good.
No,
to
in
go.
all honesty, good job.
well, we're all going, right? Next time? December,
I've never
I think
done it.
December 16th,
I'm more
December
afraid,
18th.
more
You want
like,
to come?
well, I used to be afraid of needles. Now I'm not as worried. I don't know if I
Honestly-
could watch blood leave me.
Well,
That's
so
the, like,
if-
I think that would bother me.
If you go to any of them, but like specifically the actual Canada Blood Services, like they've got cookies by George afterwards.
Yeah.
Like they've got.
they go cookies by George.
Dude.
Like they don't even go like cheap
Oh
cookies.
no, they've got all they've
Spared
got
expense.
they've got a selection, and then they've also got the ones that they keep in the freezer to like thaw out, like the cookies by
Juice
George.
box?
Juice boxes,
Yeah.
pop, water, and they have bags of chips that are bigger than like the small bags, but not as big as like
your
a
medium.
family
He just
bag.
goes
Like,
there for snack time,
Dude,
man.
they-
That's what I'm trying to, like I know which bags you're talking.
Yeah.
about. Like
the ones where you're like,
they're like
you
the value
can't buy
size
these
almost.
ones. Where
They're
do
like
you,
value size almost.
Yeah.
like they're bigger than normal, but not too like
Individual
they're the perfect
big-
size.
yeah.
yeah.
You
Well,
get the same
especially-
amount in a big bag
Yeah.
nowadays.
Especially nowadays with
Yeah.
how much air is in those bags. That's actually the right size.
So did you have to get clearance to give blood?
clearance how?
Like, did they test your blood before they?
So the first time that you go in, I mean, they know
I've
that
given
you're
blood a couple of times, but I can't
There
really
are
recall.
stipulations.
So they take test vials every time you donate, and those are overnighted to a lab in Calgary every time, where they will test that blood to make sure that it is still good.
Green light, gotcha.
And yours kind of waits until that's tested that period of time.
I think the pint that you've donated or the unit that you've donated gets put onto a truck and then is shipped down. But everything is barcoded. Like when you, it's probably about 5 minutes of them just scanning barcodes in for everything, so that the unit that you've donated matches up to all the test samples and stuff like
Hell of
that.
a system.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's intense and it's
Much needed too.
Well, it's one of those things where it's like it's always needed. There is no time.
Life.
There is no time where they're like, you know what? Come back next week. We don't need you right now. Like,
Boy, would you be crushed,
yeah,
eh?
exactly. I'm ready to go. Like,
The sport doesn't need you anymore, man.
Look at
You're
my
done.
stats.
yeah. No, I use it as like. I do use it as an excuse, like, especially with the amount of weight that I like. I will have like the biggest steak in the world the night before, and like lots of green vegetables, spinach, and stuff like that, just to make sure my hemoglobin level
for a
is
good
high.
cause.
Exactly. Like,
Yeah.
and I don't eat chips anymore, except I have to eat. I need the salt. I need the salt
So how
afterwards
much
and
do you
stuff like that.
take from the snack table?
You can take as much as you want, but I will take 1 bag of chips. I will take probably at least 3 things of cookies.
And the juice? Or you?
No, just
Yeah,
water.
just water.
I mean, 3 things of cookies.
Like they've got like the Peak Friends,
But like, are they
shortbreads,
packaged?
the Peak Friends.
So you take 3 cookies overall?
No. There's usually 2 cookies at least, and then there's like the 2 things of Oreos, and then like there's
things of
usually like a granola bar. And,
Can you take a picture the next time and send it to me? I would love to see what this looks like.
Sure. Yeah. Because you want to know if you should go in. That's exactly what
He's
this is.
taking a run at the numbers.
I'm just really intrigued, like, where they're getting all this.
Matthew
Like,
Iwanyk, who buys his own groceries, is like, this could save me. This could save me some money. Yeah.
also going home for Sunday dinners really
No,
helps
I
save.
honestly like, and the staff there, like, they treat you like gold. Like they are
But
just.
you're giving your blood.
Yes, exactly. Well, and I've always said like it is the only like charitable contribution. I mean, I make others, but it's the only one that I ever walk away from feeling like there's no nagging concerns, right? Yeah. Like when you give money, there's always that 80% of that goes to administration fees and stuff like. Whereas like when you donate blood, first of all, it's not your money or anything. It's literally your physical tissue, and it goes to someone who needs it.
Yeah.
There's no other use for it. They're not selling it on the open market or anything. Like it is just being used for patients in Alberta, is specifically in this region.
And you take them for 3 packs of cookies.
Well, so the reason, not to down anyone around here, but like the reason I did is my sister who passed away several years ago, she used 20 units of blood when she was in emergency and stuff like that. So I've always just looked at it like, well, I've got a debt.
One person, one situation. You multiply that, and you look around and just our little area here.
And I recently, my godfather, when I was growing up, he went through cancer treatment, and he got blood transfusions, and it perked, like it allowed him to have Christmas dinner. It gave him 4 more months and 4 more good months to have with his family. So it's more than just saving life. It's also about like improving the quality of those lives that are at the end of the road as well. So it's a really important
and setting
thing.
personal records. We can't shy away from
And
that. That's kind of
the most important thing.
the most important thing.
The
all
numbers.
of sports.
Yeah, the numbers.
You are the fastest blood donor in the Edmonton region.
Well, so far I have not met anyone who
Come for the crown.
I just did a 4:45. So
I just did
The
a
day
440.
he breaks, it
Yeah.
goes
That's
sub
world
4.
class.
Saturday was 4:45.
When he
so,
goes sub 4, it's going to
Yeah.
be a big day.
We'll be talking.
somebody
the big
somebody
talk
beat
of
me.
the blood world.
Yeah, somebody beat me.
5 cookies.
Yeah.
Take all you
cookie
need.
days.
Take
Sub 4 is
everything.
the
Take all the
5
cookies. Take all the chips.
That's awesome.
Jeff
They
Krushell,
do need a siren and a light.
Yes, I bet.
for when
Yeah.
you do that. Ding, ding, ding. For when you go sub 4.
Yeah.
Leaderboard.
I'll be stunned if you don't bring your own.
Yeah, exactly.
Golf too. They change out the name. Like you kind
We should all
of.
just go there.
Well, clearly I'll be semi-conscious, so I
Okay.
can't be relied upon to do it myself. So
You know what?
I'll bring one that day.
I can see
You tell me,
Fraser
I'll
going
go.
out in the shop, building on a beautiful
Yeah.
leaderboard. Next time he goes to give blood,
Yeah.
hey guys, let's set
can we
this
put
up
this
over
up
here.
on the back wall?
In
yeah.
a room.
Yeah.
But then the time he goes back and someone's ahead of him.
Oh,
he's gonna lose
Watch
it.
out.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's going to want to find who this person is.
What's the bore size on that needle? But I'm sorry, Mr. Fraser, that's going to hurt a lot. I don't care.
What's the performance enhancing the other person's doing? Like, he wants to know it all. He wants full details.
accusing other people of doping.
He's spinning his blood.
He's stalking the guy outside his house, just staring at him with binoculars.
Yeah.
Full.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
You do have to complete a questionnaire before you do it, which is a personal questionnaire, let's put it that way, of what you've been doing over the last several months or in between your last donation and stuff like that. And this week when I went in, because of the app, with 24 hours to go, you can complete the questionnaire at any time so that you don't have to waste your time at the door. And so I'd done that. And so before you go in, they do a pre-screen, and she sits you down and she's like, I just need to ask, has anything happened since you completed your questionnaire till now that would change any of your answers? And I was like, oh no, can you imagine? And she was just like, we mean, like, did you take a Tylenol? I was like, oh yeah, that way it makes way more sense than paid money for sex at this point.
What a wild 24 hours.
Exactly. Like,
Let me tell you.
on the drive here,
I'm just coming down.
on the drive here, did I do needle drugs? Like, No, I did not do any of that on the drive here. Yeah. But yeah, she just looked at me like, no, did you take a Tylenol? I was like, that makes way more sense.
You find out a lot about yourself, eh? Those things, yeah, you kind of learn.
Okay.
Wil Fraser, donator of blood, Lieutenant Eric, Jeff Krushell, Krush Performance, who's now a friend of EST. You can hear Krush Performance Wednesdays at 7 live on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. But we do have to talk about something that's now happening in November.
Yeah.
You have a bit of a seminar that's going to be taking place.
So this is interesting. And actually, being a parent, I'd love to hear your impression. And you guys are hopefully going to have kids one day as well. So I'd like your feedback. But one of the
we
things,
just want them to admit the kids they already have.
yeah, that too.
Yeah, we just,
So we put together this thing. So over COVID, guys, I was grounded. My back was bad, and I couldn't do it. And of course, everything was shut down. Who knew? But this incredible world of webinars and virtual communication.
Yeah.
So I wound up doing a ton of seminars, big conferences and small team conferences. And the questions I was getting back from coaches and parents was actually quite overwhelming. Awesome. Don't get me wrong, but I'm going, people have all these questions. They're going, where can I get more information? Get this, there's really not a good place to send people to get information about, hey, what decisions should I make for my young athlete?
are you saying there's conflicting opinions on the internet?
There is that, but there's no real reliable source. There's a couple. There's
crowdsource it.
There's Mom's Team, which is actually a great resource as well. There's the Changing the Game project, which is a good resource, but it's really general stuff. So anyway, keep getting all these questions. So I'm going, why don't I put together like a little like just a little presentation that, sums up what I've been presenting. And then it turned into this thing where I kept getting all these questions from the parents. So I decided to put together this thing called Parenting the Athlete. And it's just, the one we're doing live, we're doing it in conjunction with Advantage Sport Medicine Physiotherapy. And I know those guys really well. They helped me with my back, but it's the doctors from the Oilers and the Eskimos that I worked with and the therapists, just really, really good people. And I've been working with them, and they've given us space to put together this seminar for parents. And it's just sort of the A to Z, the ebb and flow of raising an athlete in today's landscape, which is crazy. The youth sporting landscape, youth development is going to generate more money this year than any of the professional sports. It's estimated that the youth sport industry is going to be around $20 billion this year. And that is private lessons, academies, those showcases in every sport. Yeah. It's a massive industry. And here's the thing. If you guys look back, everybody's trying to go, what's happening in sport? If you go back to like 2010, there was a massive shift. We kind of talked about it already. But in developmental sport, there was a massive shift as well. When sport became a business, parents had to be on guard because everything changed. It was a disaster. Because with the greatest of intentions, we want to give our kids the best opportunities possible. But more, without question, we now have the sample size. More is not better, we know. So the seminar called Parenting the Athlete is just about things parents need to think about if their kid is passionate about sport, to keep them healthy, to understand the long game of athlete development, and it's a long game, but also how to manage time and focus their efforts. If you have a kid that's passionate about sport, you don't want to tamp that down, but you have to manage it. Because if you look at all the people we talk about in pro sports now, they're seeing their entry-level players with injuries they never used to see until players were in the league for 10, 20 years or 15 years. Like, they're seeing these injuries now in 15, 16, 17-year-olds because the kids are specializing early. They're in these academies, they're year-round sport. So anyway, the seminar is called Parenting the Athlete. I'm quite proud of it, actually. We're trying to keep it as cheap as borscht, but we've tried to do it free, and nobody comes. So, we charge a little money, and we're giving back to sport and everything, too, which will be fun. Yeah. So a good response so far. We're going to be holding a couple of them over the course of the year, and you can see it on our website, jeffkrushell.com. Yeah.
And when are you planning it?
So
like, have you firmed up a date? Because that's changing, I know, a little bit.
Yeah, it is. We were going to try to do one this Wednesday, but timing-wise, it just didn't work. So early November 1st is potentially going to be the first date, and then one in the end of November and early December. And if there's too much demand, we'll hopefully, which there is, we'll just keep adding dates. So...
Did you ever have to... How much do your kid play sports?
My wife and I made an agreement early on with our kids that if they ever asked to do any sport, we would help them, but we would also never encourage. Specifically hockey. So we, every August 28th, when registrations closed, we would have a very silent high five that we'd escaped another year without our kids being like, I think I want to do hockey this year, and we would continue on. So honestly, the only thing we've ever pushed on our kids is physical activity. So as a family, we ski probably 20 times a winter. We do cross-country skiing in between that. I've tried to drag them out onto the trail to go running with me, and that has had limited results. They were cross-country runners in school and stuff like that. But I don't know. Right now, my biggest problem with my kids is getting enough calories into them, not worrying about anything else. So that's the fortunate situation I found myself in, is I don't have kids that I really worry about physically. And it's also because they didn't do sports and they are brothers, so they do know how to take a punch, but that's about it. Yeah.
You need the calorie loading seminar.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
what you need. How do we shove more calories in? Well, my niece, it's funny that we're on this topic. She's Davidson Sounds in and around the area. She just called up to play for an under-13 team, which was a big boon for her. Exciting, very exciting. But again, this hockey now is starting to dominate everything and anything around her interests and everything. And you can tell now by this just appointment and this call up, that's also kind of going to be doing everything. You were at that stage in your life where I can do all the sports right now, not get hurt, and have a great time doing them. But you're so focused on this one thing due to these little opportunities. I guess be any sport.
Yep. But it is exciting for a kid, though, right?
It's exciting, but you want to. But how do you
manage?
This is
that,
where you come in, manage that expectation.
So one of the things we're going to talk about in the seminar, guys, is we look back to learn and plan to move forward. But if we look back, and we have the data now. If we look back, let's take a look at the NFL draft from 2022. Of the first 32 picks or whatever the heck it is, right? 29 of those players were multi-sport athletes going into high school. When they look at all the NCAA athletes for the last 10 years, 94% were multi-sport athletes.
Really?
So we've got all, and we have this numbers for every single
But they must be
sport.
Wasting their time on other sports, right?
Exactly.
Isn't that the feeling? Or?
If you're specializing early, it's not specializing's not the end of the world. So I don't want parents out there or even coaches to get worried. It just has to be managed properly, right? There's lots of reasons to specialize. Socioeconomic situations, proximity. Yeah. You grew up in a small town that's hockey-centric. Hockey's going to be your sport.
Maybe you don't have the option of this and that and the
exactly.
other. Yeah.
So it's actually quite interesting when we show parents the numbers. Their stress levels go down. Not only that, they wind up saving tons and tons and tons of money. They save thousands of dollars by not chasing down this showcase or these summer programs. And again, that's the industry of sport that's sucking them in, right? Not only this, though, coming from small town. I grew up in small town. Are you from a small town?
I'm born and raised in Edmonton.
Edmonton. you're
Stony Plain,
yeah, right? Small town guys. So if we look at the data, there's this thing called the birthplace effect. Jean Cote, a great Canadian sports scientist, actually did the research on this. More high-performance athletes come from smaller communities, which makes sense, right? If you think about it, because they have more opportunities to play multiple sports, more access to, facilities and things. And not only that, you have a better chance of making your high school volleyball team and the soccer team. Try to make the basketball team at Ross Shep. Like
access and cost, but I think you guys were talking earlier too. Say, and with the Gretzky example, if you're the best of a 5-person town, for example, numbers wise, you can be the best of that. Then you go into a city of 20 people.
You might be 19th.
You might like. It's tough to score that there, but you're right about the cost. The opportunity and chance, you can go down to the rink, you can go down to the gymnasium, whatever it is, arguably whenever you want, right?
Right.
And do whatever you want.
More chance to develop.
We knew the caretaker of the arena. So our community built this awesome little arena. We knew the caretaker, Mr. Smith. We would drive, we'd get right in there, get the key, turn the lights out, boys, lock up when you leave. We would skate till 2 a.m, till our parents would come pick us up and drag us out.
Is that a constant though? That small town versus city thing over time? Like that's not been kind of a that's a constant.
That's a long-term.
Internet hasn't changed. Nothing's changed yet.
Well, this we'll see. We'll see. This is fairly recent data though. This is the last 5-6 years. This data. So.
Yeah, I think you probably keyed on it, maybe even unintentionally. It's about the cost, right? And it's psychological, sunk cost fallacy, all that kind of stuff. You did this seminar for free and no one showed up.
Yeah.
You charge money for it and people will show up. Why? Because they paid for it.
Right.
And so they feel they have to. And that would be probably the biggest problem with youth and sport and parents' involvement in it is once those parents shell out the money, and you're never going to shell out money like you do for either equestrian or hockey.
Right.
You will keep your kid in it way past its fun point because of that cost, like that sunk cost fallacy.
The initial is if you're paying for it, it's better, right? You buy something.
I don't even know.
Some people may think that I'm paying for a service. It should be. I demand then a return on my payment.
It's not even about it should be better. It's about I did this, and so now I need to justify it to myself of why I took that money from column A and put it into column B. And I'm not an idiot. So I didn't do it for the wrong reasons. So that's whole sort of self-justifying, even when all the evidence is telling you this was probably not a great choice for us and our family. It's really hard to pull out of it, and especially in a hockey. And it's interesting you talk about the multi-sport athletes. The big problem in Canada is that you're never going to find a more a sport that requires you to have a specific skill set like hockey does, right? In the United States, you've got a lot of coaches that get paid a living wage or better to coach football. But those school districts, the way that they make it sense is that football coach is also your track coach, or he's also your basketball coach, or something else. And so he naturally selects from those 40 plus kids, because football requires you to have such a bigger roster, to then get those kids to also come and run track or try out for the basketball team, or that point of contact of that head coach is also what encourages that multi-sport. So you don't just need to look at your athletes and ask how many sports are they playing. You also kind of need to look at your coaches and ask them what else are they doing. Because a hockey coach, my experience has been a hockey coach coaches hockey.
Yeah.
And when you ask them what else they coach, their answer will be hockey.
Well, it's an insulting question.
Right.
To ask
and
anything
so, like when you start talking about like where do you get these other athletes, you need a point of contact. And who are they going to trust more than their head coach? When their head coach comes and taps them on the shoulder and says, I think you can run 200 meters, man. Like, I think you could be really good at that.
I need a point guard.
Yeah, I need a point guard. Yeah.
Come play for me and be a point guard.
And it was all, I would be interested to see what the data is like in Quebec compared to the rest of Canada. Because Quebec really seems to have that short track speed skating culture like nowhere else in this country. And I would like to know where are they pulling their athletes from, because no one is born to be a short track speed skater.
No, right, exactly.
Right? Like, are we talking about coaches that are figure skating coaches that also do the short track, or vice versa? Or are we talking about hockey coaches that are pulling from their hockey teams to then also race short track as well?
I think the sports work differently in Quebec. Actually, I know they do. They collaborate a lot more, but also the provincial coaches are paid.
Right.
They're paid by the Quebec government.
Yeah.
We don't have that in any other province. So Quebec produces a ton of great athletes because it's balanced, it's well thought out, and they're collaborating too.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting one.
We had Steve Sandor on last week, and he was just talking about within the States and stuff, and how they'll have one of the things also about having paid coaches is that there's no self-interests, right? Their interest is about the team and trying to get the best out of their team, not a, well, I have a son on this team. Okay, either I'm going to give him extra ice time, or I'm going to be a little hard, take away a little ice time so it doesn't look like I'm favoriting him. And then there's all those competing factors where you just put an impartial person.
Yep.
They're there to do one thing, develop and coach and try to win.
Yep. Then the hidden evil there is when these teams are independent businesses now. Trouble.
yeah.
Because they don't want these kids going to other sports because they lose revenue. They don't want these kids not to have private sessions in the off season because they're losing money. As soon as guys started paying their mortgages and their kids' tuitions with youth sport, we were screwed.
The rise of club sports is unbelievable. Like in the last 20 years, it's unrecognizable when you look at a sport like volleyball. Like volleyball used to be the school sport. If you wanted to play volleyball, you played on your school team. And that was your opportunity to play it. Well, that's not the case anymore. Like there are now kids that are playing on their school team plus 2 other club teams over a 12-month period of just volleyball. And they love volleyball. There's a reason why their parents keep shelling out the money and more importantly, the time and the effort. But on the other hand, man, like there is a coach and an organization that has taken a cut of every single one of those registration fees. And that cut motivates them to continue to do it.
Yeah, and there's better ways. So some of these clubs now that we're talking to, like some of those clubs, we're saying, shut it down.
Yeah.
No volleyball. How about preparation for volleyball? How about preparation for hockey? Because some of these organizations are actually quite good. Some of these private organizations, these are coaches who are frustrated with the system, trying to do some good things, but even they can lose sight of the big picture.
Is that toothpaste out of the tube, though, in a type of way? Like once you see the model, you see it functioning and working, how can you tell people, hey, dial it back for the kids? Or we think that, and that maybe is the correct, but you can't.
No, it's a battle, Eric, 100%. So
now you have to transform it, right?
Do I have time? Quick story. So I'm in Krushell with Major League Baseball, right? And so I went from helping build the game in Europe and Africa, and they wanted me after we spent 10 years there, and it was awesome. Then the MLB asked me, hey, can you spend more time in Central South America? Yes. So Curacao, Brazil, Nicaragua, all these cool places. Then it's totally different. Unbelievable baseball cultures. Baseball's not like a 3rd or 4th tier sport.
No, it's a religion.
It is a religion there, but they play all year round. So the biggest, maybe one of the things I'm most proud of is sitting down with these countries like Puerto Rico, Mexico, and Curacao are the 3 main ones, and getting them, at least with our academy players, to shut down for 2 months. Please do not play baseball for this amount of time. And the parents, it was almost a riot. So we actually had to sit down. We got MLB. They hosted a nice little sit down with the parents and the players and the coaches, and we just explained it. Look,
the purpose.
Yes. Why do you think U.S. players, and look, so again, I don't want to go too south. This is something we talk about in the seminar, though. There's something weather protected. Canadian athletes are special. Northern European athletes are special because they're actually literally weather protected. At least they used to be, guys. And we have data, and most of it's from baseball, talking about numbers. Where do the best hitters come from? If you see the map, it's like the Mason-Dixon line in the States, man. The lower states and upwards, the best hitters come from northern climates. The pitchers with the fewest injuries come from northern climates. So what are these scouts now starting to do? They're saying, okay, man, we know these kids down south, they're over you. Unless somebody's really special, forget it. We're looking north. And now what's happening, because we got all these year-round programs and indoor facilities, we're losing one of the greatest powerful tools we've ever had, and that's what's going on outside right now, the winter time, where we can't play. And so all these crazy things are part of the mix, and it's not a simple answer, but the toothpaste is out of the tube, Eric, like you said.
But now you have to work with it. Now
We
you have to transform it, and you have to find a way to...
Exactly. And so I just got really passionate about the youth development thing, because what we realized probably about 10 or 12 years ago with our pro guys, they're not getting injured there. They're injured long before they sign their first contract, and the quality of the tissues we're now receiving at the highest level, it's subpar. It's really, really subpar. And so we're going, how do we gotta attack youth sport. We have to course correct. And if we don't, well, we'll have okay sports. But I'm telling you again, we're destroying more talent than we're creating guys out there. Period. Sorry.
Never
Great
apologize.
story.
No,
I never apologize.
It's so important.
But people are making money, and that's what's important, right?
People are always finding ways to make money.
It's the biggest sporting industry in the planet.
And now that you
20
said
billion.
that off the hop, now it all makes
20
sense.
billion.
I mean, that all adds up.
10 years ago, 10 billion was just hockey. And that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And that, like, in Canada, not North America, in Canada, 10 years ago, hockey was a $10 billion a year industry. Isn't that what, like, that is, I mean,
That's a big number, man.
Stupid.
They
stupidly big.
famously, they talked about Steven Stamkos and his family, and that at the age of 16 to 18, so his main draft years, his parents basically spent to the tune of a new mortgage on his development.
Yeah.
I think Ken Campbell from the Hockey News wrote a book on what it takes
Selling the game.
Selling the game.
To get
yeah,
into it.
That's where that number comes from.
The cost of it all and the hundreds of thousands that it cost people to...
The thing that got me about that book, we had him on our show. It was an awesome conversation. Hockey parents, read Selling the Game. It's a fantastic read. But the thing that got me was you have better odds of winning the lottery than making the NHL. I'm going, that's a bold
You
statement.
like those odds?
But they break it down. No, but they break down the odds. And they say, okay, look, if you spend, like, in that career, they figured out it was $300,000 we spent from Bantam AAA to junior hockey or whatever it was. If you spent $300,000 or whatever the number was buying lotto tickets, you have a better odds of winning that lottery than your son or daughter, make into elite sports.
And I've always said the real danger, I mean, there's tons of dangers, but the pernicious danger is probably a better term, is that because of that sunk cost fallacy, because of the push that happens, you end up with high performance athletes, truly talented people who hate their sport, right? Who end up in the NFL, the NHL, Major League Baseball, who end up there because they never really had a choice. They had talent.
So listen,
right?
You're right.
And you can see it on the field where you're just kind of like, I don't know what's going on with this guy. And the truth is, they never liked to play the sport to begin with.
Frage, here's a cool thing, guys. I got to know some of the Chinese athletes, right? Elite World Olympic Chinese. They are designated at youth which sport they're going to play. So this one tennis coach who was in Edmonton for quite some time at the Royal Glenora and the U of A, she was actually in the Chinese system when Yao Ming was coming up. And she said, of course, he was engineered to be a basketball player. They said from birth.
As most basketball players are.
Yeah. She did not. She wanted to play. I think her sport was volleyball. She loved volleyball, but they designated her to tennis. And it was tennis, like boom, job through as kid. But her family got really great perks because she was fast tracking and on the track for tennis. She hated tennis. She's one of the best coaches I've ever seen, but she told me personally, I do not like playing the game. I never really did. It's not the game I wanted to play.
Yeah, and I think that is a more common thing than anyone wants to talk about.
Yeah.
Is that you have a lot of players on the field of play right now who, if they could do anything else, they would.
Yeah, as opposed to China, as you said earlier, with the cost and everything, you've invested so deep and so far. Why stop now?
That's where that's where the state has invested. Whereas here in North America, it's your parents' livelihood.
It's like a poker pot,
but they've already gone in.
Yeah,
they've already gone in. They might as well keep pushing
I want
it.
to try to see if I get the
stopping now.
payback.
Yeah.
Don't just quit. I want that payout.
Well, it's not. Don't blame the parents. Like I honestly believe that most of these parents, if their kid came to them and said, "We got to stop," they may not like it at first, but at a certain point, they would choose their kids' happiness over anything else.
Even not liking it at first,
but kids are conscious people too, and they see the sacrifices that their families have made, and they make the choice. all suffer because they suffered.
Right.
Like I can't break everyone's heart
Yeah.
and say no at this point.
And that's what we talk about, guys. There's ways to manage this. There's checkpoints. There's checks and balances along the way that parents need to be aware of, because kids can't possibly comprehend this stuff. They're playing with their buddies. They're chasing down a dream. There is nothing more awesome. Here's the bottom line. We do not know how good your young athlete can be until they go through the process. All I'm saying is understand the process, parents. And when you do, I'm telling you, your child will probably be healthier, almost a guarantee at some point. They'll probably enjoy sport more. And even if they don't make it in the high performance pathway, there's greater odds they'll just play for fun and for their life.
And this isn't to say that if your kid comes to you and says, I hate this, you immediately stop.
Right.
Because there's a lot of times where kids are just wrong. Right.
Like, talk to any Olympic athlete or pro athlete. They will tell you how many times they wanted to walk away.
Yeah. Like getting my kids into skiing, I had a younger kid who took to it like a duck to water, and another kid who, if he could stay in bed all day, he would.
Yeah.
And so you will know your kids as well. You'll know the kids that need to be told you don't know what you want, so I'm going to make this choice for you, and the other kids that just take to it automatically.
Yeah.
So
couple messages in the nasty chat before we wrap up right over here. Scott saying, all three of my kids are pro athletes in Europe. All three are multi-sport athletes throughout high school. All three, one female, two males, wrestled, played hockey and rugby.
Love it.
And the Northside Sandwich saying, I was talking to someone this week and they said their kids were told they can't play school sports because they're property of their hockey team.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Yes. Oh my gosh, this is a conversation that we're now having at the national level. I work with some of the Canadian national teams, and it's a very different landscape. It used to be the national teams would help players develop, but players are actually now almost seen as proprietary property of these programs that are developing them. They almost stamp an ownership. It's almost like the Japanese leagues, right? Where, if you want to sign a Japanese player, you have to pay $50 million to the Japanese league and then $51 million to the player. Right? It's almost getting to that point. It's getting scary. Parents thanks for those texts, you guys. That is just music to my ears. And we need to have more of those conversations.
This is easy for me to say because I'm not the parent and I haven't done the legwork that parent clearly has. But as soon as anyone comes to you and either says it or has it in writing and refers to your child as property,
Well,
that's
trouble.
It's not trouble. That's just time to turn the car around.
Yeah.
Like that's
Amen.
That's time
it
to
should make you think.
Back to Winnipeg.
Well, exactly. That's time to say thanks for everything. But I can't be involved in an organization that ever refers to a child.
So
as
my
property.
nephew Alex, he is turning 10, going to 11, and he's going to Vic Comp, and he's loving soccer. Right, he plays soccer, but then he got into freestyle skiing with my middle because they're the same age. And
She's a bad influence. We all know that.
They love skiing. So Alex wanted to ski in the winter and play soccer with his buddies, and they're good soccer players.
Sure.
The coach came to Jay and Kim, my brother and sister-in-law, and said, hey, look, Alex cannot ski this year if he wants to be part of this team. He has to come play indoor soccer. You guys know me pretty good. I got angry. I was angry because my nephew was crying because you're forcing an 11-year-old kid to decide between this. He can go play. You can go play fun indoor soccer during the week and ski on the weekends.
Yeah.
And they're saying, no, we practice 3 times a week. We play games on the weekends, if you want to be part of this team.
Yeah.
I lost it. And that's where I think my thinking shifted, going, this system's broken, man.
See, and I wouldn't, personally, I wouldn't waste a second trying to change anyone's mind
or
on
understand
that.
it. Or
If anything, I would look at that coach and I would legitimately, honestly say, thank you. Like, this world is really confusing, and you just clarified a really tough question for us.
I'm going to put you on speed dial. Because when I have another emergency, phrase, calm me down, man.
Yeah, like you really just clarified it. When you said those words, now we know what we need to do.
Well, you don't have to go through another rough road of doing that shit over again.
You really just clarified this decision we had to make as a family.
I got on the phone with my nephew's coach, and I just simply said, can you explain your thinking here to me, please?
Yeah.
And it better be freaking good. That's all I said. And he's and on. He couldn't.
Couldn't-
It was a money thing.
Money, it's all money.
It was a money thing.
Yeah.
They're losing revenue from.
Yeah.
Come on. Parents, be aware. That's all. That's
And
all
a
I'm saying.
predictability thing as well.
Sure.
Right? Like you have a coach who wants to be able to basically game plan a season in front of him.
Yeah.
And the best way you can do that is if he already knows what his roster is going to look like and he knows what shape those kids are going to be in
Yeah.
by the time that they hit the
And to be
first
clear,
game
that
of the
was
season.
It's his team, and we're here for
Exactly.
him.
Yeah.
That wasn't the school program. That was a club program. That was a separate club program.
Yeah.
More info on your seminar. Where can people get that?
Just go to our website. It's for parents, no athletes allowed, because we're having these hard conversations with parents, and I'm looking forward to it. This is our first kick at the can for this one, so feedback's going to be great and everything, but we're just trying to get people thinking about things they might not think about.
On the website?
JeffKrushell.com.
And you can listen to Krush Performance Wednesdays at 7 right here on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. We'll going for a run today in this.
I am going to
Are
give
you?
it a
Good
try.
for you.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
for you.
Minus 20 is the cutoff point, so we're not at minus 20.
Fair
yet.
enough.
So.
And one day down, 6 months more to go till you get your Blake Wheeler.
Can't wait. Can't wait. They've got all my info, so.
We should have a countdown clock.
We're gonna have to
Oh,
we're gonna
that'd be
slowly
great.
figure
Yeah,
out
yeah.
how long. We're all gonna forget about it.
Yeah.
You get in the
Yeah.
mail.
It
You'll
came
be
with-
under 4
It
before I
came
get
with
that.
a tooth.
Oh, that would be great.
You have Blake Wheeler's tooth? No, it's a tooth.
A
It's-
tooth.
Coming up
yeah.
next, it is the Lock Shop
better.
with Huss and Dusty, and then at noon, we're going to find out what do the new lines look like for the Edmonton Oilers without Connor McDavid. It is the Oil Stream with Dusty and Tom Gazzola. Jeff, Will, thank you for coming in. Thanks for the hour. On behalf of you two, Trev, Lieutenant Eric, Wil Fraser, and Jeff Krushell, I'm Matt Iwanyk. Thanks for tuning in to the EST Hangout. We'll chat with you again tomorrow. Lock Shop coming up next.